Alright, I've added a new lab. The new lab has to do with how you're able to read a source code and find a vulnerability and exploit it. And the focus is going to be broken access control. The lab is going to show you a source code. You're going to review the source code and find what the vulnerability is and exploit it. And I'm going to go over it step by step. So let me go ahead and open up the application first. As always, PinewoodStore, this is where I added it. I added a new application called inventory, PinewoodStore inventory. So when you click on it, you get to the PinewoodStore inventory system admin dashboard. So let me click on admin dashboard. Now, the premise of this lab is you're gonna have a regular user permission, and when you click on it, it goes to access denied page. What you need to do to solve this lab is you're going to look at the source code for this authentication system and find the vulnerability and exploit it. Now I've added a button called source code leaked. Now most of my labs, the way I do it is, as much as possible, I try to imitate realistic scenarios. So most of the time when hackers actually exploit a vulnerability based on the source code, what happens is by mistake developers post their code on a public repository like GitHub, and somebody is able to find that source code and go through the source code and find out some vulnerability. That's why the reason why I said I added this button as a source code leaked. And you can think of yourself as an attacker, right? The best way to learn how to defend is actually start thinking like the hacker. And that's the reason why. Let's assume that you are in the place of the hacker and looking at the source code here. And you found the source code that was leaked. So basically when you click on it, it will show you the source code behind this authentication system. Now, the code is written in Go, but if you have a good understanding of one programming language, whether it is Python, Java, or JavaScript, you can actually exploit this vulnerability, like understand what the source code does just by looking at the flow and exploit the vulnerability. So you don't have to know Go, honestly, not for this lab anyway. As much as possible, I try to make it in a way you can understand, look at the flow, understand what the issue is, and try to exploit it. So alright, so let's start off. Since I'm just demonstrating this, I'm going to explain everything, but as much as possible, not getting into details, because this is not a tutorial on how to write a Go program or an application. So I'm going to go over some of the basic things and just show you the flow and how do you actually read the code. So first thing obviously is just gonna tell you this is a Go language, because you can see here main.go and package. And the other thing is, as you can see here, is this page is actually it's not a GitHub. Like I said, I try to imitate everything as realistic as possible. That's the reason why I have created this HTML, CSS, JavaScript page to imitate a source code that was leaked. And even if you notice on the message here, security alert, the code on this repository was leaked on a public repo reported by a security. This is more realistic approach. It's not really, this is not even production, this is a lab code. But yeah, as much as possible, I try to imitate the realistic approach. So that's the reason why you have that message. So let's go over some of the code. So this is an import statement. You find it everywhere, Java, JavaScript, Python. Basically what it does is it imports a lot of our libraries that it needs to use to get the different functions work. So it needs all these libraries. Like I said, I'm not gonna go through each and everything, but I'm just gonna give you an idea and just show you, just by looking at the flow. You don't need to know everything. You can understand what the vulnerability is and also exploit it as well. And I'm gonna go over the exploitation as well. So now, just give you an understanding, Go has a data type called struct. Basically, what a struct is, it's just one data type that has multiple fields. Think of it you could compare more like other data types from other languages, but basically that's what it is. This is struct. It's just one data type that has multiple fields. The fields are called, and as you can see, your typical definitions, right, for each field. This is going to be the first one is going to be mode of address, is going to be string, bypass code string, access level, and http.cookie. So it defines that, and it has two functions, one on the bottom and the other one on the top. Let's start from the first function. The admin dashboard basically, as you can see, it has two parameters. R and W stands for read and write. What it does, R stands for it reads an HTTP request header, and W stands for an HTTP response. Writes to an HTTP response. So basically, kind of writes a response to the user. So those are the main things, and like that's the main basic structure of the code. But let me focus on the main thing. So we define the struct here. Obviously, it's an empty struct. It uses it. It defines using the basic struct that we defined here. It defines it as an empty. Then it assigns different values to the different fields: access level, remote address, and bypass code. And where is it getting it from? This is the most important part. The first part, access level, is actually reading it from a cookie. There is a cookie with a cookie name called access tier, and reads that cookie value and assigns it to the access level field of the struct. And the second one, it reads it from the HTTP header, as you can see, header here, and the header that it reads is called X forwarded for. I'm sure you came across this header a lot of times. And the third one is it's going to read again from the HTTP header, and it's a custom header called PinewoodStore inventory team code, and assigns it to the value that is assigned to bypass code field of the struct. So basically that's what it does. And finally, it actually renders back. If you see here, it takes the value, it reads the value and assigns it to those different fields of the struct, and actually it renders or calls another function called check privileges auth. So that function, we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. That's the most important one. That's where the authentication lies. So, and what does that function does? The function does is actually what I did is I try to add a comment that way because I don't want to make it too hard to read. So as much as possible, I try to add a little bit of hints. First one, I added this case 1, case 2, case 3. This is just a comment, but basically telling you the different cases of conditional statement. And if we start from the first case, what it does is access level. This is the one that it reads from the cookie. If it is equals to nil, or maybe basically this what this means is actually if the cookie that it actually refers to using access level, which is access tier, does not, it's nil means it does not exist, null value as you want to call it, and in other languages as well. If it doesn't exist, then you're going to go ahead and return a page called access to null, which what we saw when I clicked on the admin access, that's the first thing that came in because it didn't have the cookie, the authentication cookie. So the second case is it uses again the field value of the access level, and if it has a value, and if the value is not equals to administrator, the access tier value is not equals to administrator, then it's going to return basically saying insufficient privileges. And mind you, this is a value that it actually reads from the cookie. And the third case is, and this is I just want you to pay attention. This is client IP. You might ask yourself, what's a client IP? Now we read a different value from the X forwarded header. Now what it does in here is actually it extracts, like I said, I gave a little bit of hints, but I'm sure you might, I mean, you'll be able to tell. But basically what it does is from a remote address, from the header, it would actually retrieve the IP address. Now, after it retrieves the IP address, and you can see here too, the split is it's a common method used in a lot of languages, just to extract certain characters from certain characters from a field. But basically what it does is it extracts an IP address, and if the IP address is not equals to 127.0.0.1 or localhost, it's not any of this, it means this request is not coming from a local user, local to where the application lies. Then it's gonna return basically saying local access required, and it's not gonna allow you this. And the fourth case is this is the one where it reads it from the custom header. Now, if the custom header, the bypass code, by bypass code, what that means is actually the header would have a PinewoodStore inventory team code would have a value, some kind of long characters like this. Now, if that value is not equals to this, then it's going to return saying you're not using the correct team code. And the final case is if any of these conditions above are not executed, what that means is the request has a cookie and it has a correct value administrator, and also the request is coming from the local IP or localhost or 127.0.0.1, and also it has the correct bypass code, which is this one, which is hard-coded. So if all this would be satisfied. If they're not satisfied, obviously there would have been the cases that the program would execute. If not, that means all the conditions above are satisfied, so it would return back saying admin access granted. So now let's go back to the question, what is a vulnerability? Obviously the vulnerability is if a hacker is able to look at this code, they can spoof this, because all these things that we see here, cookie, X-forwarded for, and Pinewood inventory team code. The first one is the value of a cookie, which you can actually spoof on your request. The second one is read from the HTTP request. It's a request header. You can spoof that as well. The third one is a custom header. You can spoof that as well, as long as you know the value of it. So if a hacker is able to look at this, they can see all these values can be spoofed, and he can actually create a request, spoof all those values, and gain admin access. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at the vulnerability and how it gets exploited in practical terms. So I'm going to copy this and open up proxy. Let's go ahead and clear this out. Open browser. I'm going to start from the first one. So if I go to admin dashboard, hopefully I got the traffic here. Yeah, I got this. So I'm going to send it a repeater. Let's go ahead and close the rest of them, so it won't be confusion. I don't need those. So this is a fresh one, and as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and send it a couple of times, and I'll explain later why I do that. So let's start with the first one. So if you send it without any of those headers and send it, and what happens? You don't have administrator privileges. So the second one, I'm going to go ahead and add each header one at a time, and I'll show you, even if you have some of the headers and not all the headers, it's not gonna work. So the first thing is just go back to the code itself. So the first header is actually the access tier. It's the cookie value is access tier, right? And that's the cookie name. Let's see. Let's add that first. And this needs to be based on the code. This needs to be administrator, as you can see here. I'm going to copy it so I don't misspell it, but I could have easily typed it honestly, but save some time. Now I'm still need to add 2 more headers, but I'm going to show you that it doesn't work just by 1 header. So if I send it, I get this, and if I look in here, admin dashboard requires connection from localhost. So local access required. So the next one is actually, I'm going to go ahead and add this, and also I'm going to add the local access. If we go back to the code, and the header is just going to be this one, right? X-forward. And based on this, it needs to be either localhost or 127.0.0.1, and you can see it here. And 127.0.0.1 or localhost. So I'm going to go ahead and use 127.0.0.1. Alright, let's go ahead and send it. Now let's see. Still the same thing. Your account doesn't have admin permissions because you are not using the correct team code. So the custom header, the last custom header that has the code, if you're missing that, it's still not going to allow you to do that. But let's go ahead and add the last one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these 2 headers first and move on to the next one and add it here. And what is the last header? And this is the custom header, which is the Pinewood team code. And let me get the code from the source code again. All right, let's go ahead and send this one. And now this one has all the headers, right? So does it give us admin access? Let's go ahead and take a look. And as you can see here, you'll see admin access granted. And it does give you that. And let's go ahead and take a look at this and the browser. Copy this. Alright, so admin access. You are able to bypass by spoofing those headers and also the cookie access to your cookie value. You're able to get access to the admin. And I added one last button. This is just to make it cool. Honestly, it doesn't do anything, but what it does is opens up this nice HTML, CSS, JavaScript animation that shows a hack being completed, a data exploitation, and I created it. So I kind of like I thought I added it just to make it kind of like, you know, interesting, right? But it doesn't do anything, honestly. Just opens up that page, the HTML page. Let's go ahead and click on it. You might as well enjoy it, right? So yeah, it basically shows you this, a scan, and all that stuff. It just gives you a visual representation of a hack being completed, right? You got admin access. Basically what you do is scan the target on the network, maybe find host, identify vulnerabilities, right? It's basically saying. And also when you're doing this, you probably have intrusion detected from another, they probably have intrusion detection systems. This is data exfiltration going on, exfiltration complete. This is just, honestly, this is HTML, CSS, JavaScript animation, just to make it cool. All right, so I've added the slab. I'm gonna go ahead and push the code to PinewoodStore Docker today after this video, and that's it. And you can go ahead and download the Docker image, a new updated image, and test out this new lab.